All right, let's do some Mathity-Math. Got my pencil and I got my eraser because, you know, everybody makes mistakes. I got a calculator here. We'll talk about that in a minute. And let's get started. So our first question says here, you have a mango store where, shocker, you sell mangoes. That makes sense. So you start the day with 200 mangoes. And then you sell 55% of your mangoes. So it says, how many mangoes did you sell? How many mangoes do you have left? Or how many mangoes did you not sell? So this whole quiz here is really focusing on using percentages and comparing to the piece or the whole of whatever we're talking about. And sometimes we get confused about how that all works. So remember, you are more than welcome to draw this little triangle to help you remember what's going on your test, and that can help you put all your information in the right place. Okay, so I got this here, and I'll bring it out when we need it. So right here we have all the mangoes, and that would represent our whole. We have our percent, which is the percent. So you can see here we're trying to find the piece. So remember, whenever you're trying to find the piece, I can cover up what I'm looking to find. So I cover that up and I can see, oh, it's just percent times whole moving across. So I know, let me see if I make sure. Okay, so I know that the piece of what I'm trying to find will be the same as taking the percentage and multiplying it by the whole. Okay, so just working across, that means I know my percentage is 55%, and I know my whole is 200. Okay, and I'm gonna come down here underneath this 55%. I'm just gonna write a little arrow to show that I also know that if I take 55%, right, and I divide it by 100%, it's gonna give me 0.55. So I can move that into a decimal. And now I'll just take this little piece and draw another arrow right up there. So I'm saying 0.55 times 200. And it's gonna give me, now this is where I can use my calculator because I've shown all my work. I show what I need. I just do 0.55 times 200. That's what that is right there. And I get 110 mangoes. I sold 110 mangoes. And this is, well, how many mangoes do you have left? Well, that's just saying, well, that's pretty straightforward. I had 200 mangoes and I sold 110 mangoes. So I have 90 mangoes left. Voila, there we go. Moving on to question number 2. Question number 2. It says, you have given up your mango store and now sell bananas. That's how it goes. You're moving to the banana business. And it says you sell 112 of your bananas, which is 28% of all of your bananas. How many bananas did you start with? Okay, so the bananas that I start with, that would be my whole. That's everything I had. So if I think about that little triangle we made, if I'm looking for my whole, I can cover that up, and I can see, I'm just gonna take my piece, and I'm gonna divide it by my percent. So over here, I'm just gonna write the concept we're working with here is that the whole I'm looking for is the same as the piece divided by the percent, okay? And that's the math we're gonna be doing. So we can think about substituting that in. So my piece, that is the 112 that I sold, 112 bananas, okay? And the percent I'm dividing by is the percent they gave me, 28%. And now again, I'm just gonna, remember, I'm not gonna use this percent. I have to convert it into a decimal. So I'm just gonna say 28% divided by 100%, would give me 0.28. And I can just swing that back up here. And I can say, let's put it, oh, what, a little too far, whoopsie. That's gonna go right here. And so that's like saying I have 1/12 divided by 0.28. And that should give me how many bananas we started with, the whole thing. So here we go. Again, I have my calculation right here, so I can just take my calculator and do the math. I can say, okay, 1/12 divided by 0.28, 400, ta-da! And I started with 400 bananas. And if you wanted to check your work and see if you're on the right track, you could take your 400, right? And you can think about, well, I sold 28%, so, you know, double check that 400 times 0.28 should give you the 112. If you do front ways and backwards. Okay, moving on. Question number 3. Oh no. Oh, there's my little typo. You have given up. We have given up our banana stand, and now we're moving on to watermelons. Okay, a new adventure. So we start the day with 75 watermelons. But at the end of the day, we have 6. Oh, it looks like we did pretty good selling those watermelons. So it says, what percentage of our watermelons do we have left? So in other words, they're saying, what percentage of 75 does that 6 represent? So if you go back to our little triangle, we are now looking for a percentage, okay? So that is just the piece divided by the whole, or the total, right? So again, I'm gonna go over here and just kind of show what I'm doing. I know percentage is the same as, let's put this here so we can see it again, same as piece divided by whole. Piece divided by whole. Okay, so now we're here. Let's just substitute in the pieces. The piece I have left, that's just my 6 little watermelons. And the whole is 75. Well, that's pretty much it. So we just take out the handy dandy calculator and you can see 6 divided by 75, 6 divided by 75, and I get 0.08, which is a decimal, but we're looking for our percentage. So remember, the next step we say 0.08 times 100%. We'll move it into percent, and that's going to give us 8%. Okay, so our answer is 8%. Good job. All right. So then it says, what percentage of watermelons did we sell? Well, if you think about it, if we have 8% left, we started with 100%, so you get 100 minus 8, 100% minus the 8%, and you're going to get left with 92%. So we know we actually sold 92. Let's write that sentence. I sold 92% of my watermelons. There we go. And so here it says, describe why your 2 solutions make sense in a real world context. And I think to answer that one, you might need to kind of justify this piece right here, right? So I think to justify this piece right here, we could think about, I could say I started with 75 watermelons and I sold 92% of those watermelons, and 75 times 92 is and so 75 times the 92% would make, you can see the math right here, 69 watermelons. right? Okay, so now we can describe this in a real world context because we can say, okay, well, I know that 92%, that gave me 69 watermelons. And I know from before that the 8% gave me 6 watermelons. So 100%, if you add that up, 92 plus 8, 100%, or all the watermelons should be 75. And look, we have 75 here, and that lines up with there. So in a real world context, you know, the percentage of what you have left added to what you sold should always be 100%, and then those numbers should always line up. If you started with 75 and you sold 69, you should have 6 left. And so that's in a real world context because everything should match up and make sense, okay? All right, moving down the line. Okay, so we decide to get a new fruit knife for the business. And the fruit knife cost $125, but there's also an 8% tax on the knife. Okay, so it says, how much do we have to pay for tax and how much do we have to pay in total? Okay, so to find the tax, again, if you think about what they give us, they told us the price, that's like the whole price of the knife, all the knife, and they told us the percent. So we're looking for the piece, and this piece is the taxes. So I'm looking for the piece, so it's percent times whole. So I'll just write that down right here. My piece is my percent times my whole. Okay, and here we go. My percent is 8%. And the whole cost of the knife was $125. Coming here, and I hope you guys at this point are seeing this pattern that repeats. Math is all about patterns and processes, and if you know the patterns, you know the processes, the only thing that really changes is the numbers, and we should be in good shape. So I take this 8% and I divide it by 100% to move out of percentage, and that's going to give me 0.08. So I can take that value and put it right there. 0.08 times 125. Now I've shown my math, so I'm more than free to use this calculator. Here we go. 0.08 times 125. You get $10. Okay, you have $10 in taxes. So that's how much you pay in taxes. So when it says how much you have to pay in total, well, all I have to do is take the cost of the knife and the cost of the taxes. So you're just saying 125 plus 10 equals $135 total. Ta-da! There you go. Moving and grooving and doing great. Let's keep it going. Question number 5. Hey, last week, we made $500 in profit. That's like the money that we gained. That's awesome. And this week, the money you make has increased by 220%. So it's higher by 220%. So this is how much money did you make this week? Okay, we can do this question a lot of different ways. And one way I like to kind of think of it is if you kind of think about like if this is week number 1 right there, okay? Week number 1, we made $500. $500. Fantastic. That's really, really great. In week 2, it increased by 220%. It increased by 220%. That means it's on top of what we already had. And so this is a way to think about it. It's like if it's increased, it went up by, this is like now our new baseline. Like we have the 500, that would have been even Stevens, like we matched it, but it increased. So if it increased by 100%, that'd be like another 500, right? That's like another 100%. Or it increased by another 100%. So now we're at 200%, okay? And the 20%, well, here you go. 20% of that 500 is just another 100, right? So that 20% would be like another 100 right here, okay? So this piece right here, this 1,100, that represents, I'll just do it on the other side, the 220% increase, like on top of. So then what you have to do is you have to take this value and this value and put them together. And so the money we made this week is actually 1,600. Now we can verify that. We could also kind of use our triangle, right? And you could think about this. You could say, I'm just going to take my whole 500 and multiply it by 2.2% moved into decimal. And if you did that, we can kind of check our math here. There's something really interesting might happen here. So you have 500 times that 2.2, which represents 220%. And look what happens here. I say 500 times 2.2. And you get 1,100. But you don't panic here because, right, remember, 11 panic, that makes sense. We've already verified this, that 220% is 1,100. You also have to remember to add in that 500, and that's how you get up to 1,600. So that's 1,100, and then you add the 500 because that's our starting point. And there you go. You've shown it two different ways. You made $1,600 this week. Good job. And then it says, can you verify the accuracy of this calculation? And I actually think in this kind of context, you could just reference, you could write about or redraw these diagrams. That's one way that you kind of verify that your work is accurate. And then you've also done it the second way with the math, and that's another way to verify that it's accurate. In this section, you could also write that no rounding occurred. All of the values were exact. So in this context, you've done it two different ways and you did no rounding, so you could explain why you felt that your calculation was very accurate. And if you wanted to prove it again, you could try to think of maybe a third way to test and see if your math was correct. But yeah, I think referencing and talking about what you just did or just redoing it would help you verify your accuracy. Okay, home stretch. Our fruit business is going great. We decided to go on vacation. And while we're there, we let our cousin Ringo run the banana stand, okay? So we left Ringo with 209 bananas to sell. We said, hey, Ringo, here's some bananas. Good luck. Okay, so we get back, and Ringo proudly tells us that he sold exactly 90% of the bananas. Okay, thanks, Ringo. But does this make sense to you? And either yes or no, please explain your reasoning. So the first thing we should think about is, what are we doing? We left him 209 bananas. That's all the total we left right there. And he said he sold 90% of those. So again, it's a piece situation. I'll just put that over here. The piece is the same as the percent times the whole. Again, we see these patterns repeat over and over and over again. So the first level of substitution, 90% times the 209. I will just draw my little arrow and say, I know that 90% divided by 100% converts me to the decimal of 0.9. Coming right back here, and here we go. Oops. 0.9 times 209. I've showed my calculation. I can just use my calculator now. So we do 0.9D, that's 90%, times 209, and we get 188.1 bananas. And so the question, does this make sense to you? I'm gonna have to say, no, not really, right? because how do you sell 0.1 bananas? Yeah, Ringo's got some explaining to do. Either Ringo made a math error, or Ringo has been selling little pieces of banana, which is, in my experience, not how people like to buy bananas. But hey, who knows? The world's a big place. But anyway, I would ask the question, Ringo, tell me more about this 0.1 banana. All right, here we go. You think your remaining watermelons will rot or go bad or spoil. That's what that means. Go bad soon. So you really want to sell them. You usually charge $8 for one watermelon, but now you're offering a 15% discount. So that question is, well, what is the new price of your watermelon? Okay, so if $8, that's the whole price for a watermelon, and we know the percent, just using a process of elimination, we can say, oh, I'm trying to find the piece again. This one we have to take a little further and do something with that piece. So this piece represents the discount, or the money we take off, okay? So again, remember, piece is just percent times whole. So I have my piece, it is my percent times my whole. Just filling in here, my percent discount is 15%. I'm gonna multiply that by the total of $8. Okay. Once again, doing this song and dance, 15% divided by 100% gives us the decimal of 0.15. That can go there. 0.15 times 8. Okay, let's see what it is. 0.15 times 8. We get $1.20, or 1.2. Okay. Now, that is our discount. Okay, that's how much we take off. Discount. But the question said, what is the new price? What is the new price of our watermelon? So what we actually need to do here is take the price, the old price of our watermelon, and subtract the discount. And that's how we're gonna get the new price. Now, these decimals are kind of scaring you. You're like, I don't wanna do the carrying and stuff. I haven't done that kind of math in a long time. I get it. I mean, it's good to know, but that's also why we have this calculator, right? So I take my $8 and I subtract the $1.20 that is my discount, and my new price is $6.80 for a watermelon. Okay, and this is, well, how accurate is the solution? Well, we can show how accurate it is. We can just kind of verify the whole process, right? So for instance, I know that my whole price of my watermelon, right? The whole price of that watermelon that value was $8. Okay, that makes sense. And if I took 15%, that 15% had a value of $1.20. Okay? And if I kind of subtract these, I would get left with 85%. And so I know that 85% should be, what's my new price? $6.80. And then I can take it one step further to make sure it's accurate and verify it. I can say, well, I can check this. I can do some quick math. I can say, well, what is 85% of my $8 price I started with? And if I did everything right, it should be $6.80. So let's see. 0.85 times 8.00, and look at that, 680. So you have now done the 2 different ways to kind of check your work and make sure it all adds up. And again, for accuracy, you could also, besides noting that you did the same problem 2 different ways, it adds up to 100%, it adds up to your total, your numbers match. You could also mention that you did not do any rounding so that the accuracy should be pretty complete. Okay, that's your practice quiz. Listen, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to drop them in the comments or just ask me in class. But if I don't ever see you in class, put them in the comments and I'll try to shoot you an answer. All right, that's it. As always, be safe, make good choices, be kind to yourself, and be kind to others. Bye.